This is Phantom Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Elliot Sawyer. You're a trust advisor. You help companies overcome disengagement to become businesses that people will love. We
Mm.
have your link down there below for elliotsawyer.com. We'll put up a QR code for that later. But welcome to the Phantom Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
We love to talk to people in this format. We've been talking to people since 2016, and we have over 1,300 interviews. And one of the things we always ask everybody that's on the show, first couple of questions, is what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
Oh, that's a great question. First, what motivates me is I'm a person of faith, and this has been a personal calling I felt from God in my life to do this. So that's been the biggest motivator for me. And then uh, helping out people that I get to serve and be an asset to. So helping leaders, companies, organizations, and teams has been something I've done for over 20 years. And it's a real joy. It's for me, it's not work. Again, it's more of a calling, and I feel very energized and it's a life-giving process for me. So that's really what motivates me and gives me life in it too.
Yeah, I think it's really important to be focused and be able to tell your story. Because a lot
Yeah.
of times, like, your story is what like, your secret sauce, because that's
Yeah.
your life experience and how you can pay that forward and can be a mentor to other people because you pick up on what you've learned and you pass it to the next person down the line. So, like, you've got this thing called a trust audit,
Yeah.
and, one of the things I wanna get into your story is, like, how did you get into this space of wanting to figure out like why companies have disengagement, why people have lack of trust, what made
Yeah.
you focus on this area?
Yeah, that's a great question, Phantom. It's been a theme that has been up in my personal life and professional life for quite a while. When you ask about the story, one of the parts of my story that's kind of painful is experiencing a lot of rejection.
Mm.
Rejection is something that I had to face and live with and deal with for many, many years. And as I got into it, one of the things that I started to understand is that rejection was happening more in my life when I was actually trying to get from people rather than to give to people. What I mean by that is when I was in interactions or relationships or in professional settings, I was more focused on what it meant for me rather than what I could bring to the people on the other side of the table. And I've done now research and psychology studies on this, and there is a direct correlation between selfish motives and rejected results. So if you lead with motives that are only focused on yourself, you're going to experience more rejection because people don't trust you, their guard goes up, and they resist whatever you're offering. And that was one of the things that was really groundbreaking for me was understanding that my life is actually more enjoyable and actually more fruitful when I make it about how can I help somebody else rather than what can I just get for it for myself. And so there's a lot to my personal story, but that's kind of the major theme of it, of realizing rejection was one of the most painful things I kept experiencing and figuring out what was at the core of it.
I think it's interesting because a lot of creative people, I mean, I talk to a lot of creative people, and you're creative because you're an entrepreneur, but a
Sure.
lot of the process is that you break a lot of eggs, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
like I'm on both sides. Like I'm in software development. I'm in a startup. I've been doing software since like for 25 years. But I'm a
Wow.
musician, I'm a podcaster, so I left right brain. But one thing I take from my artistic endeavors is that you do a lot of work an athlete. They do like 20,000 hours of prep to get to where they are. Probably more than that.
Sure. Sure.
Musicians the
Sure.
same thing. You don't see all the work we do to get our bass guitar to know how to not look at the fretboard or not
Yeah.
look at your sax or not look at your piano. It's like you do the work and nobody sees you when nobody wants to hear you.
Yeah.
Nobody, there's a lot of stuff that we put on the cutting room floor in software, all these
Yeah.
iterations and never make it to the client. And
Yeah.
every time we make those, have these accidents, happy accidents, or we fail upward, we don't
Yeah.
look at it as like a bad thing. That actually is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It gets us to where we needed to be. Absolutely. Yeah. What have been some of those moments like for you?
Well, like when you're designing things for software, sometimes like what was in the project plan, like you actually have a happy accident
Yeah.
And the engineers and the architect, we go up to the manager and say, "Hey, what you had in the plan is kind of like garbage now. It's like what we just came up with is better."
Yeah.
And being in certain companies, certain people were so stuck on the plan.
Yeah.
They would like they just the gift horse in the mouth, they just like, "Oh, throw it away." And
Yeah.
then I got tired of being in organizations like that because the more dynamic startups or the smaller organizations were able to move when something
Okay.
like that happens, but the
Yeah.
bigger dinosaur type organizations, the bureaucrat, the actuary, the guy from accounting, they would say, "Oh, I can't do it." And I
Mm.
got frustrated because I wanna do what I think is gonna be best for the client, for the customer, and sometimes they were just doing it because it's on the plan. I'm like, "Well, what
Yeah.
does that mean?"
Yeah. 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 No, there's been many iterations of this for me. I've spent, you said it takes about 10,000 hours for someone to become an expert in something.
Yeah.
I've spent 10,000 hours one-on-one meeting. I've been a pastor for a lot of my life, but guiding professionals and leaders, I've spent well over 10,000 hours coaching people. And one of the things that I found, it kind of touches on what you said, is that people are oftentimes unwilling to look at the painful places, but the painful places have some of the most significant breakthrough or significant things in their life that they can offer. I use these phrases all the time, like your misery will become your mission, or your pain becomes your purpose.
Mhm.
And it's those kind of things that if you can kind of lean into and discover, it can really be a benefit.
Yeah, I think it's the big thing that people find with, like, you think about, like, a singer-songwriter. Like,
Yeah.
a singer-songwriter that shows their vulnerability,
Yeah.
right? That actually leans into something that's very personal, and it makes it
Yeah.
universal. Well,
Yeah.
that kinda it could be hurtful if people, like, criticize what you're saying because it's actually you, but once you put that out in the ether, you put it out in the world, like, you don't own it anymore. Right?
Yeah.
The listener owns it. So you have to kinda let go of the like, the safety guard around
Yeah.
your ego when
Yeah.
you're an artist because, like, once you put something out there, somebody's gonna hate it.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna hate it. They're not gonna like it, especially if
Yeah.
you're innovative. No matter what you do, if you're innovative, nobody's ever seen it, and the first thing they say is they don't
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. But it can be some of those impactful places too. I have a mentor. He's New York Times best-selling author, and we talk a lot about public speaking and writing books because that's kind of the stuff we do. And he often says, I love this phrase: if there's no tears in the writer, there's no tears in the reader. And
Mhm.
in order for us to give something really beneficial to the world and people, it's got to be lived experience that we've overcome or triumphed or been through. So it's going to be personal. To your point, it's going to be vulnerable. It's going to touch those intimate places if it's really going to be something that you can become an expert on and then help other people in.
Yeah, because you have to go through and, feel the pain in order to get the gain. You like,
Yeah.
people who are, like, working out, they say, "Oh, no pain, no gain." It's the same thing with art or anything you do where you're
Yeah.
on the cutting edge because, like, you think about it, if you're in a class room where, like, and you're the kids that don't raise their hand versus the A student that always raises their hand. They're so
Yeah.
scared that everybody's gonna think they're a fool.
Yeah.
But there's no bad answer, there's no bad question, but we're kinda taught that, "Oh, well, you get embarrassed, you're gonna get bullied, you're gonna get this, you're gonna get that." So you go down this road where you don't actually wanna reveal that maybe you're not the best. But
Yeah.
if you don't reveal that, you're never gonna get better,
Yeah.
right? You have to lean into what you don't know how to
Yeah.
do in order to
Yeah.
get better at that or
Yeah.
try something different or mix things up. It's like if you're not willing to take risks because you're trying to say, keep the wolf at the door because
Yeah.
you're so scared you're gonna get triggered
Yeah.
by somebody saying they hate it or they don't like you or they take it personal. You're like, oh, that's the thing that you always have to overcome is the shyness and the safety net of trying to stay inside the gate. Sometimes you gotta
Yeah.
walk outside the gate.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's what I get to be a part of on a regular basis with leaders and organizations now is going about with a different strategy, a different kind of against status quo. I give this phrase often, that is because it's a counter contrarian thought to how a lot of leaders and teams and organizations operate. A lot of those organizations will use leverage. Like I'm going to leverage this for that. I'm going to use this for it's transactional. And
Hmm.
we'll often say something like, leverage tries to pick the lock, but loyalty is the master key. So we've got to figure out how to unlock loyalty rather than leveraging people, using people, manipulating people, coercing people, taking advantage of people. How can we honor people and get the best out of them? That's really the crux of overcoming disengagement for me is people will disengage more and more when they interact with a leader or organization that is only operating in self-interest. But
Yeah,
when a leader
transaction.
or organization, yes, when they're transactional, when a leader or organization can move past self interest and say, hey, how can I be for the benefit of my employees and my customers? They overcome disengagement. They don't even have to think about it. They're a
That's
loyal
radical.
brand. They are a loyal brand that people love to work for and buy from.
Well, it's a radical thing because a lot of times people think, if you get to the C suite, you get to the management suite, they think of. And I lived in Japan. I'll
Okay.
give an example.
I was just
In
there in October. Where'd you live?
Well, I lived in Moto Azabu near Roppongi.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so I lived there from 2004 to 2006.
Okay.
I actually was an expat for 2 years, working for a big insurance company. But what I found, is like they would take. Like I knew guys who were working in engineering, people like at Honda, Toshiba, stuff like that, and they
Yeah.
would take from the people on the floor, like the people on the assembly line, the machinist. They could actually um, provide suggestions to the engineers.
Wow.
When some organizations in the West is like the machinist on the floor is never going to tell the engineer anything. The engineer is going to say, "I know best." It's top down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you go that top down, like the engagement in that Japanese company, like those guys are machinists, they've been there 20, 30 years, 40 years. They have a lot of respect for their worker. If
Yeah.
you treat the guy like a widget and they can go in and out, we don't care about them. We're not gonna listen to them. You know, that's the way you get disengagement. Like if you
For
get people
sure.
who are passionate about it, right? Guys who are working on the Nissan Skyline GTRs, those guys like hand built those engines.
Yeah.
And those guys were there for like 20, 30 years building those engines. And the Nissan like respected those guys.
Yeah.
They
But
didn't
where
treat
there's
them like they were, you know what I mean?
where there's honor and loyalty, there's a great collaboration. There's room for creativity. There's room for input. There's room for people feeling safe enough to not be humiliated, like we were talking about earlier. If you give an idea or a thought and you get shot down, like a kid who raises his hand and asks a dumb question, you're not going to keep doing that because it's an unsafe environment. But if you
Mm.
find that it's a safe place to be able, because your thoughts and your input are valuable and honored and validated, you're gonna bring that stuff more to the table, and it's gonna bring employee satisfaction, work satisfaction. It's gonna bring all those things up, but it starts with the culture. It starts with the ethos of the organization, and the leaders set that. And if it's driven by self interest, it's going to experience high levels of disengagement. But if it's led by what I call honor driven leadership or honor driven organizations, engagement will skyrocket, and then results and talent comes in, and customers acquisition comes easier, all those things. But we put the cart before the horse. We just go after how do we get more customers, how do we get better talent, rather than kind of looking at it from the inside out.
Yeah. And then you have these models where like private equity comes in and it's like just
Yeah.
cannibalizes an organization, totally destroys it.
Yeah.
Right. So if you get a situation where somebody comes in, like, let's say it's a food company, and they
Yeah.
had a really good recipe, but that recipe, when the actuaries look at it, it's expensive,
Yeah.
right? So if you go and say, well, we're going to skimp on it so we can eke out more money for the shareholders and all those guys. But like what you do is the customer starts saying, this don't taste right.
Hmm.
This isn't what I used to know. And then you start getting the customer disengages because you didn't care
Yeah.
about what the flavor was. You just cared about how much money you made on each carton you sold.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you have that kind of mentality that comes in and they're spreadsheet driven, looking for 0.003, 0.05 and don't care about the product, don't care if it's going to suddenly, maybe the product would last for 5 years, 10
Yeah.
years. And then you
Yeah.
make it so it only lasts 2 years.
It loses its special sauce.
Then people are like, well, this used to be good, but now like I got to buy it every 2 years. I'm probably not going to buy it again.
Yeah.
You think you're going to get more sales? It's like, no, you're not.
No.
These decisions that get made like that, they're kind of in a vacuum. They're very short term.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
not they're looking at the number in a spreadsheet, not the value of what that number is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's all too common. I've got great friends that work for private equity, but private equity do have notorious reputations for just ripping the soul out of a company. It,
Yeah.
it rips it rips the heart out because, like you said, they're just bottom line driven. They're numbers driven, and they're thinking about shifting margins a percentage point. And sometimes you don't think about, well, what got us to be successful in the first place? What was the recipe, or what was the culture, or what was the leadership strategy, or what was the outlooks here? What was the vision? What were the intangibles that were making this thing special? That if we're not careful, we will sabotage in the name of driving margins and pushing numbers.
Because some people are willing to pay more. Like this is the big mistake. A lot of people. I'm a synthetic, right? So
Yeah.
so so like Moog used to be built in North Carolina. They moved most of it to Taiwan. They
Okay.
found that there was a lot of disengagement from a lot of synthesis because we liked the idea that was made in America. We
Yeah.
liked the idea was hand built, right?
Yeah.
And there were a lot of us that disengaged and say, "Well, I don't know, I'm going to buy from this other company that still makes them," right?
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, we thought we could make more money." So now they suddenly started building some mini Moogs. They make 500 at a time. They'll make them in America, and so like, oh, like you realize that people will pay 5 grand for that,
Yeah.
right? Even if you made it in Taiwan, they don't care. They want to know it was made here. So it's like sometimes they disconnect from like, do you understand what your customer wants?
Yeah. 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 Price is not the only thing that they're conscious of, and especially when it comes to loyalty. I mean, we could rattle off a bunch of brands right now that people, it's not about money for them. It's about what that brand means to them, and it's
Yeah,
about how they're treated, and that's why they keep lining up to buy their products. It's not just because, oh, they're the most affordable, that they're even the best features or the newest technology. It's the brand has done something to win the customer's loyalty, or even I say win the employee's loyalty, because we see employee turnover all the time because they'd rather work for someone where they're treated better.
yeah, that's the problem. Like if you keep on, if your boss treats you like is gonna micromanage you, don't listen, not pay you for the overtime, then of course you're gonna look and say, well, where could I do better?
Yeah.
But if you in an organization, if you put like 80, 90 hours in, and then your boss takes you out to dinner, gives you an appreciation dinner, right? Gives you a little bonus, gives you a pat on the back, actually says they like what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't just use like the employee review to be
Yeah.
hypercritical, right? If you just red mark somebody, like if you had a teacher, right? You're in an English class and your teacher red marks your whole paper, you get disengaged, right? If your teacher comes to you instead and said, I love this about the paper, and they talk about that for like 10 minutes about what they loved, and then they sneak in, they're like, well, you could have grammatically fixed this and that. You're going to be more engaged wanting to talk to that teacher than the teacher that just red marked you.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. I always say people are going to work places and they're going to buy products. That's going to happen for the end of time. People are going to work places and buy things. They would obviously prefer to work and buy from places that they like. And the way that you win their loyalty is you honor them, you treat them well, and you think about their needs. You hear their inputs, you hear their feedback, and you take those things into consideration when you're making decisions. Again, not just making bottom line decisions.
Yeah, because the self interest, like if you have a self interest, like it's the root cause of disengagement, because that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense to me. Because, if you got people, all they care about is like the quarter. And then there's no long term thinking. Like everybody's got their MBA, someone got their PhD. But it's like
Yeah.
if you're only going quarter by quarter, what kind of long term thinking do you have? Right. And I understand it's important to win the quarter, but you also got to have the long range plan.
Yeah.
And the problem I have is like if you're self interest because you make a lot of money for your options and all these other things you have based on the quarter performing. But if your turnover is crazy because
Yeah.
you're burning out all your workers,
Yeah.
right? And then you're the people returning your product, like, and you're not counting that. You're doing a creative accounting. It's like you're okay. You're looking short term, but you're actually not performing that well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, where's the full analysis of what you're doing?
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. And I argue often is that people who build trust, because these are sort of the things that build trust, whether it's with employees or customers, they won't just be rewarded, they'll be rewarded more than ever before. We're living in a time right now where trust is at a deficit.
Mhm.
World leaders have said that this is a crisis of trust that we're in right now. And you can feel it on a macro level and you can feel it on a micro level. But where companies and leaders and organizations can establish trust and loyalty and the things that we're talking about, again, they're not just going to be rewarded, they're going to be rewarded more than ever before, because because most people don't get to experience those things. And if they can experience somewhere that they trust and that there's loyalty with, they're going to return to over and over and over again. They're going to become fanatical about those places. That's why the crux of what I do is called the company people love. The company people love to work for and buy from. And if you can have that sort of loyalty, you can have longevity, and you can win quarter after quarter. And it's really interesting to see how many teams or organizations they bypass that, and establishing those levels of trust are going to help people and companies win over and over again.
Yeah, 'cause it's really interesting about this trust audit that you have, and
Yeah.
I'm wondering like how do you engage with a client with that?
Yeah, so that's a free resource that we created just to people for people to be able to dipstick. Like, I want to know like if I have a trustworthy leadership. I want to know if I have a trustworthy culture. And so we've just kind of put together this quiz that gives you different areas where you can think through like, am I trustworthy in this area? Do we have trust in that area? And that's a starting point for us when we're working with a client or a customer to say, hey, where are you at with trust and loyalty? So that's just a initial thing that we'll do with them.
Yeah, I think it's important to get that barometer because it's kind of
Yeah.
like this idea, like Victorian age was the looking glass self.
Okay.
You look in the mirror, right? Metaphorically, a lot of poets from that era, Tennyson, Wordsworth, all they all by this idea of the look in the glass self. It's like self analysis where you got to be critical of yourself, right? If you just think you're perfect, you never make a mistake. Like how are you gonna really be credible?
Yeah.
Like so if you think like you done everything by yourself,
Yeah.
really, like you
Yeah.
haven't had anybody ever give you a contribution, you're just totally self made. Like you have to be honest and
Yeah.
also talk about like where did you make your mistakes? Where are your lessons learned? Where the audit of your life and actually being transparent.
Yeah.
Because if you have people who are kind of double speak, yeah, they say one thing, but they mean something else, and people start realizing that. They're gonna be like, how much engagement are you gonna have with that person? How much credibility do they have?
Yeah. Yeah. We talk about some different pillars that build loyalty, and obviously one of them is trust. And there's great research that we've dug into about what builds, establish, and sustains trust, and even rebuilds trust. And you touched on one of them. There's actually five strong elements. This is from a factor analysis from clinical psychologists and researchers and books, but they took this factor analysis and said, what are the major themes that just keep showing up over and over and over again? And transparency was one of those. We've actually created like a little acronym for that, and I'll teach this in keynotes and in workshops and things. But the acronym is transparency is the T,
Mhm.
R is reliability. U is actually the biggest one. It's we kind of put it as the pinnacle. But if you're going to have trust, it's actually based on understanding that both parties are seeking to understand the other side. The letter S is for sincerity, that meaning the motives have to be that you are for their good. Someone's going to trust you if they know that you're for their good, and vice versa. And then the last one, which people spend way too much time on, it is an element, but they focus only solely on this one, which is talent. Like I need to be good at what I do to show I'm trustworthy. That's a part of it, but it's only one fifth of the ingredients to build trust.
Yeah, because a lot of times if you take a risk like on somebody that maybe doesn't have the resume, right? Doesn't
Yeah.
have everything, like everything you go on these resume systems now. They're all being scrubbed by AI. It used to be that you could actually talk to a real person. And
Hmm.
when you're like, so when somebody looked at your resume and said, well, you don't have X and Y, we really want that, but maybe you can tell me a story about how you think you could still do the job. But
Okay.
when you have these algorithms, this scrubbing stuff, and it's like looking for the perfect person, well, that perfect person might not be the right person
Yeah.
because like sometimes somebody who has a transferable skill that's not readily apparent, but if you never talk to them, you're
Yeah.
not gonna find out, and if you just screen everybody with AI
Yeah.
and bots and algorithms, I think
Yeah.
we're missing the plot because some of this tech, and I'm a tech guy,
Yeah.
like, you still need human beings. We still
Yeah.
have to control our tech. We control what our bots and what our agents and stuff are doing. You can't just let them run wild,
Hmm.
right? You
Yeah.
have to have some supervision, and there are some folks today that somehow think you can let this stuff just run with no supervision, with
Sure.
no human element. And every time they try to do that, they find out, oh, it deleted the database. It went and did this. It went and did that. It's like, well, do you have trust in your agent?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't know if there is. I don't know if I trust my agents all the time. Sometimes it feels like it's biased and sometimes it feels like it's manipulated.
yeah, I can do it. Like the problem with well, I don't want to go on a big track, but the problem with machine learning is old databases. It is what it is,
Yeah.
right? These machine learning databases are changing like every second.
Sure.
Right? So if they keep on changing, like every time you ask it something, it gives you a different response because it's actually learning its foundation is shifting. So if you have something which foundation is shifting all the time,
Mm.
how are you going to have stability?
Yeah. So let me ask you a question because you're on the tech side. I work more in people skills, like people skills and leadership and communication and stuff like that. That culture, that's kind of my area. When it comes to the AI age that we're in now, how do you think that affects people skills?
I think it reduces people's skills. I'll give you an example. Like if like I know the Dewey Decimal System. My child is 70s. You know, I had to
Yeah.
write a research paper. I had to go to the library.
Yeah.
I had to go and actually go do polls and actually go out and do. I was a sociology major, political science major, so I didn't just go on a bot or something. I had to go out and do polls. I had to
Sure.
go canvas. I had to go do research. I had to go read and cite and do endnotes. And if everybody's just doing everything on the computer and asking some AI something, like I find people are losing really good research skills.
Okay.
They're losing comprehension. They
Okay.
don't stay in. They don't actually read. It's like if you it's like an idea, like Moby Dick, the book. They
Yeah.
read the AI synopsis of it and try to give that to the teacher.
Yeah.
Like you don't know Moby Dick unless you read Moby Dick.
Sure. Sure.
So the problem I have with AI is they're giving everybody the cliff notes and nobody is serious, nobody has any deep knowledge. Human beings need to have deep knowledge to make accurate, informed decisions.
Okay.
And if they don't do the deep knowledge and everything's just like tertiary, it's just superficial, it's not trustworthy.
Yeah. Yeah. We're catching it. We're getting on the same page.
Yeah, that's my opinion. But I'm a
Yeah.
techie and I'm certified in AI. I
Okay.
certified all kind of AI tech, and I use it as a tool, but I don't use it to replace my own human knowledge or
Yeah.
capability. You have
Yeah.
to understand the human being is still super important. Our brain is more sophisticated than any AI.
Yeah.
So people are selling human beings short, and they're going to find out that you should never sell a human being short.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. That's good, man. That's good. Yeah.
I think that's where people might get, if leadership thinks that the human worker is not important and the compute is more important, that's like their first like trusted problem.
Yeah. I was working with a big HR person for a big company, and he was sharing with me. I think it was last year. They had about 1,000 employees that they had let go or in customer service, and they had let them go, and they were going to replacing them with AI. And that was in Q1, and it didn't take until Q3 that they were already hiring 700 more people because the AI wasn't doing what it was hoping they were doing, and it was causing way more problems. They're like, we
Oh,
need
it
people
will.
back.
It will, because the problem with AI is it makes a lot of assumptions, right?
Yeah,
And like I said, the foundation shifts, so you don't get consistency
yeah,
compared to old databases where we can say it consistently can do it and might do it wrong, but we know what it's going to do.
yeah.
With this stuff, we have a hard time knowing what it's going to do.
Okay.
And in business, do you really want something that's that volatile?
No,
Business
you need
wants to know,
predictability.
predictability. You need to know that it's going to do this 99.9% of the time. It's going to do that.
Yeah,
And if it's like shifting all the time, it's like, why would you want that?
yeah, yeah,
If you're a creative person, maybe you want that variability because you want some kind of weird streaming thing, it's a stream of consciousness thing. So I can say,
yeah.
oh, that's cool to kind of just what if this. But if I'm an accountant and I'm an actuary, I want that to be what it's supposed to be.
No doubt. No doubt. No
So
doubt.
that's pretty simple to me. It's like so you're trying to sell this widget to everybody, and it's not actually for everybody.
Okay.
And that's the first lesson, but they'll figure that out.
No doubt.
I think it's really important to know that human beings are always going to be in the mix. Now we have to learn and we have to up our skills. The problem I think is our educational system was always kind of built to put us on the assembly line or put us out in the agricultural field, right?
Mm,
It was not designed, except for the top 10% or 5% of people were designed to be critical thinkers that get MBAs and PhDs and go into really specific skills. This AI tech means that more of the common people need to do what the guys with MBAs and PhDs need to do, which means you
that's
have to dive into your critical skills. But that's not what we told the kids to do.
no.
And so that's the big problem is if you suddenly want the kids to ramp up to that in a millisecond, like
Hmm.
that's a hard task to get hit.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. That's an interesting take that from schools, kids need to be encouraged and even taught how to dig deeper into the critical thinking side, especially in this age that we're in now.
Yeah, everybody can be an entrepreneur, but you have to have some skills.
Yeah.
You can't just like by accident go into it. You have to have a
Yeah.
plan. You have to
Yeah.
have long-term critical thinking. You have to be able to understand what is the business case?
Yeah.
What is the use case? What is the problem? Right? What is the top 5 things that we need to solve here? Not to say what are the top 100. No, let's break it down. What is the top 10? What's the most important issue that you're having an obstacle with? Be able to critically assess things and be honest about it. Um, that's just simple, but a lot of people have a lot of trouble with that.
Yeah. 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 So when you saw, I'm gonna bring it back for just a second. When you saw my bio about disengagement, what were some of the things that came to mind for you?
Well, I see a lot of disengagement when you have management that's like living in an ivory tower
Okay.
and they don't connect
Yeah.
and they kind of just stay in the room
Yeah.
and they don't ask anybody on the floor
Yeah.
anything. It's like if you're in and I've been big Fortune 500 companies, like everything's done in that cathedral
Okay.
of the C-suite, and there was no engagement. When I got to the startup level, like everybody in a startup, no matter what level they're in, is getting have something to say in the conversation,
Yeah.
right? And so I started to prefer that. So I made a choice. It's like I don't like that other structure. They might tell you that they listen, but they don't, right?
Okay.
And I was in it for like 10 years, 10, 15 years, I heard what they said and I saw what they did.
Yeah. You're
Like,
making it sound like it was jail, like you were in prison for 10 years.
yeah, well,
Like
it seems
I
like
did my
it.
time.
It seems like it because it's like
Okay.
no matter which I went to a lot of big companies
Okay.
and I saw the same problem in all of them.
Yeah.
They would like to say that they were on the edge. They wanted to say that they wanted the people who think outside the box, but they put them in the cube.
Did you see any outliers, any leaders that stood out that were not that status quo? Did you have any experiences with someone who um stood out to you?
Yeah, well, I was in Japan. That was one
Really?
big company that they were willing to listen to the Japanese leadership
Okay.
Well,
How so?
some of them were. Then I
How
ran into
so?
some of them. Well, the Japanese leadership, the way you actually kind of had a company, the American company went and took over a Japanese branded company and
Yeah.
incorporated it into their conglomerate. But they
Yeah.
kept a bunch of the Japanese management because they didn't understand the Japanese market.
Okay.
But then some of the people from the US wanted to say that they understood the market when they didn't, right? And so there was a fight between the people in the US that thought they could just take American business processes and practices and just implement them in Tokyo.
Okay.
Where those people were hitting the wall, and I was with some people who were a little bit more evolved and actually were on the ground with me as an expat there for 2, 3 years. And not the guys who come in for 2 weeks. The guys who
Mm.
come from the home office to come in every 2 weeks, they didn't know anything
Okay.
about the real market. So as a matter of like making assumptions, thinking that you know it without being on the ground, and then minimizing the people on the ground, where you had some leadership that would respect the insights of the people who are on the ground in Japan, and other leaders that figured they could just top down it. So
Okay.
at the end of the day, the ones who actually decided, well, experiment and say, let's see if we let them run it the way they think it should run, if it'll work, and it worked. And the other people were like trying to poo poo it. It was like, well, that was that one time. And then the thing is, they cut my engagement short and they brought me back to try to take what I learned and apply it in the US and say, well, it doesn't apply in the US because it's like it's specific to Japan.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I got disengaged from that because like I wanted to stay there. So it was like so it was a cool thing for a period of time until somebody made a decision. So oh, we can take that and learn from it. Like, well, you really didn't. So that was my lesson learned.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So you saw a few outliers.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's always somebody that will listen, but there's sometimes there's a lot of weight toward not listening.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so it's like there's a lot of room for consultants like yourself to come in and try to fix it because there's a lot of fixing that needs to get done.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. That's what I'm hoping to do.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan because and I don't want to poo-poo things, but there's a lot of improvement that can be made.
Yeah.
And consultants, I've been a consultant for many years, but like that's what we bring to the table. It's like I can make this more efficient. I can make this more effective. That's
Yeah.
what it sounds like you're doing. You're coming in and saying, here, let's be honest and say, like, where are your pain points?
Yep. That's
Where
it.
are your problems? Like, where can
That's
we
it.
actually solve it? Right?
Yep. And we can bring about the results that they want. The results they're looking for is, less employee turnover, greater performance, more customers, growing revenue, exponential growth, all those sort of things. And again, we argue you can have those things, but it starts with the culture that you're building and how to intentionally honor your employees and your customers in a way that people want to give their loyalty to. They want to give their hard on dollars to. They want to give their time and energy and their years to if they're going to work there. I believe with all my heart that people want to sacrifice. They want to work hard. They want to give. They want to give their best, but they're looking to places that are actually worthy of giving that to. And if
Hmm.
and if they're in a place that doesn't value them, they're not going to value it. It's just a paycheck. They're
Yeah.
just going
Well,
to
they're just
clock
gonna
in and
phone
clock
it
out.
in. Yeah. I mean, if you get a guy who's only going to do the 9 to 5 or the 8 to 4,
Give the bare minimum.
yeah, they're not going to put like when that's the difference when you go to a startup, right?
Mm,
Everybody's willing to put like 80, 90, 120 hours. They're going crazy with amount of hours. Like you do it. It's like the Silicon Valley model with the
yeah.
IT guys. The guys in those Silicon Valley models or the startups or all these AI companies or like in the tech world, people are willing to go crazy. I mean, they're total warriors for the job. I mean,
Yeah.
they will put, but that's because they got stock options. That's because they get told they're going to get a piece of the pie. They feel that they actually believe in the mission. They
Yep.
believe in what they're doing. They really have bought in.
Yeah.
They're not just phoning it in. They're not just like, oh, I'm just going to be here and try to avoid the boss, or hide from the boss. They're actually looking to talk to the boss.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
I
they want to
I
have
have
a
a friend.
conversation with the boss.
There's a guy in my space. He's a keynote speaker and consultant, like what I do. His name's Ryan Leake, and he did some research around employee retention, and they did all these surveys and all this research around what keeps employees engaged, like kind of what we're talking about here. And it was really interesting. The number one thing that they found, and it's something you would rarely ever think of, and they boiled it down to this one thing: that employees that would stay and engage, they called it, they had an imagination. What they meant by that was that they had a team or an organization or a culture that kept people on a vision, like, hey, this is where we're going. Like you talk
Hmm.
about a startup culture, they're all dreaming, they're all excited, they're all
Yeah,
bought in. There's
yeah, they
something
had these big ideas, like they're going
there's
to Mars.
something
I
that they're
mean,
all giving they're all sacrificing for. But big companies lose that. And if you can stimulate this sort of imagination, like, hey, I'm a part of something big, I'm a part of something great, and here's what my contribution looks like, and here this how this helps, rather than this is a paycheck, these are how they're using me, and this is how I'm grinding, and you clock in, you clock out, and you're just that job has no affinity to you. It doesn't mean anything to you. It doesn't mean anything to you don't mean anything to them. It's this meaningless.
yeah, yeah.
It's
It's
this.
like if you have passion, like if you're like when I found the passion part, type of situation, like I said with these like the Nissan engineers and the mechanics, like they were like they loved the GTR. They loved that car.
Okay.
They believed in the car. In that car, they just like that was their life. And if you get people who are like really passionate about the product or the service, and they're passionate about making it better, exponentially better, changing it, revising it, having revision, re-envisioning it. When you get these engineers, they're like, oh yeah, we're trying to build like all this real high tech stuff,
Yeah.
and we're trying to not just improve it. We're actually radically trying to create new tech, like
Yeah.
really, science fiction, like Gene Roddenberry level tech. And
Okay.
when you get people who want to do that kind of stuff, they're very they do it. It's almost like they would just volunteer to do it. Like if you
Yeah.
put them on the team, some of them would do it and say, "Hey, you don't have to pay me. Just let me do it." Because it's like a NASA project, like they're going to the moon. There's some folks that are like that. They're like if you give them that something like that, they're just so passionate about it, they put their heart and soul in it.
You bet. And I would argue that drives loyalty. Where there's something for people to give their best to, or if there's something that grabs their attention and like the way they'd be willing to volunteer for it. My goodness, that's the highest mark of a loyalty, is someone that would even do this for free. Um, that shows you that level of vision and kind of dream can capture people far beyond just, hey, here's a promotion, or here's more money. Those are the sort of things, the intangible things that can really stimulate loyalty.
Yeah, when people feel like they actually, and you can even be in a service environment if somebody is listening to the CSRs and saying,
Okay.
"Hey, we could respond to these clients way better if you actually let me redesign the CRM. Like, let
Yeah.
me talk to those guys and don't just top down it. Let me actually be in the room with the architects and say, hey, this is what really happens. And this system is like making the customer upset because it really puts them it makes us look bad.
Yeah.
It's giving us a black eye, right? So if you actually listen to the people who are actually on the front line
Yeah.
and don't just top down it, and then they get to be part of the solution. And I've
Yeah.
been on teams where we brought in people on the floor,
Yeah.
like the CSRs, like the people on the engineering floor. When you do that, then they feel like, oh, this company cares about me. This
Yeah.
company listens to what I have to say. Then that person might even join the IT team. And they never even thought they could even be on the IT team. But
Yeah.
they came in and suddenly they got into a whole new place because you listen to them. So you actually allow people to have upward mobility when you actually engage and listen to them.
You bet. I always say, if you want buy-in, you got to give buy-in.
Yeah,
You know what I
definitely.
mean? If you
Yeah,
want it, if you want buy-in from your people, you got to buy in. You got to go buy into what you got to go find what it is what they need. And understand those things and help in those areas. and be a place where they can give their feedback or they can give their concerns. We do a whole teaching around pain points. You mentioned that earlier. Pain points are the easiest and most identifiable ways to understand disengagement. What are the pain points, and what can we do, whether it's employees or customers, to alleviate those things? Now, you can't do all things. There might be some things that just might be personal, or someone just a grouch about something. But if there's a constant theme about pain points, that shows you what you can address. Like you can survey your people and, hey, what are the pains here? What are the struggles? And you can do the same thing with your customers. Hey, what if this is the service or product that we provide? When you're looking for this, what are the pain points? Where does this break down? Where does this not work? And leaning into pain points is an incredible way to understand disengagement and then to build loyalty from there.
Yeah, because if you actually listen to the customer feedback, I'm a mountain biker,
Okay.
and like a lot of mountain bikers, we're real clear with the companies like what works and doesn't work,
Yeah,
and
those gearheads are real specific, man.
we're
I got some
very
friends that,
specific.
yeah, I got some friends that are building gear like certain
Building
mountain.
bikes from scratch.
I live in Colorado, and there's a lot of mountain products here, and the gearheads are loud and proud.
We're very loud about like that don't work, right? So we'll tell them, like we'll actually write a letter, we'll call them and
Yeah,
say, you know, this was a cool idea, but it doesn't work.
yeah,
And then the companies that actually listen to the bikers and actually change it,
mm,
right? They stay in business and people like say, okay, you guys are responsive. You guys understand this is how we use. They actually listened to us and came up with products like the seat post dropper. I don't know if you see
okay.
dropper seat post.
Uh-uh.
Mountain bikers, like when we go down mountains, like we were dropping our seat post so that we could go down really steep inclines. And then they actually created like an automatic thing that will actually from the handlebar drop the seat post or raise it.
That's smooth.
And it came from us. We're the
Yeah,
ones that said, this is
the
what we
people have
do.
spoken.
This is what we do. Can you do something? And then they did it. So it's like
Yeah, yeah.
that's when people
That's
say, like, yeah, you actually listen to us. So you create cool stuff.
we have clients that we've worked with, Phantom, that have built entire business models around pain point. Now we would work with certain companies in different industries, and we'd say, okay, let's go find the pain points. And we have this little phrase you called table scraps. What are the things that your customer, this is specifically in the outward facing, external facing, customer facing side, but what are things that your customers are facing that other groups or your competition are unwilling to do, but they need help solving? And they would start asking those kind of questions and get great feedback. Then they would build answers and solutions to that. And sometimes that would become, I work with one company that that department, that division of the company became the most profitable part of the whole company. The margins were the highest. And we said it like this. It actually became their greatest marketing too. Rather than
Mhm.
spending all this money getting their name out, they started becoming known in their industry and in their market. These guys actually solve this problem. They take care of the stuff nobody else wants to. And so I said, you're investing not only into the service of your customers, but this is getting great reputation for you, and it's
Yeah.
getting great word of mouth. And so it works on a lot of levels. If you can start to dissect and understand what your customers' pain points are, and like we talked about, even your employee pain points keeps you combat against turnover and attract better talent. So pain points is an incredible way to understand and dissect disengagement.
Yeah, because you have to look at all the pillars of your business. And sometimes people, it's like, if you're working out and you only care about your abs,
Yeah.
but you don't care about your nutrition,
Yeah.
and then you're not sleeping,
Yeah.
and then your mental health isn't that great. So you could look good in the mirror, but you're a mess. It's
Yeah.
like you got to look at everything. And the problem is sometimes companies like your body, they look at one thing.
Yeah.
They look at like you look at a person, they only look at one thing on the surface without looking at the deeper parts of an organization, like the workers, the
Yeah.
customers, like the supply chain, like the distribution network, like the customer service. There's like that, all these different parts, like your accounting department,
Yeah.
like all those pieces. You have to think about the holistic picture, and a lot of times it's just narrowly focused on one thing
Hmm.
without looking at like all the things. Now you can't look at everything, but you do need to have a kind of 50,000-foot view of what's going on
Yeah. And
and
I would
maybe dissect it.
I would even suggest that that holistic approach that you're talking about, I was talking to a guy earlier about this today. The word integrity, its origin actually is a word of measurement, like how much weight can something bear. And if a company wants to experience success, you and I know that it has to be strong in all areas. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's got to be strong in its teams or its marketing or its accounting or its delivery or its leadership. It's got to be strong in those areas because as business pours in, if they can't handle that, if it
Yeah, they're gonna
breaks them,
go break.
they're going to be gone in a few years. So it's their integrity is how much weight can they bear? How much can they carry? And that applies to that holistic approach that you just talked about. Those areas that are forsaken or neglected will come back to bite you at some point.
Oh, bite you. Yeah, if your infrastructure is like, you got a house, you want to put a third floor on, you didn't check with the architect that your foundation can't handle that.
Yeah.
You can want it, and people go do stuff like that. It's like they want it, but they try to shortcut it.
Yeah.
You shortcut it like that can't hold that load. Like if you can't hold the load, so it's like it happens with like businesses, like in terms of like a capacity. Like
Yep.
if you have
Yep.
calculations like oh, you get a million rows of data, this thing doesn't work. Well, when you weren't getting a million rows, it was fine. But if you exponentially build your business out, now you've got a bottleneck. Now you've got this thing's going to give you a hard error all the time, and now it's a problem. It's because you have to work with your foundation, your the structure has to you have to have understand structural change.
Yep.
You can have a non-structural change, might not have that much impact. It's not going to really push the load. But if you do structural changes and then you don't actually support that structural change,
Mhm.
you're gonna be in big trouble.
Yeah, that's a great way of saying that because a lot of times I get kind of put in a box of like I'm a culture guy, like come in and help fix culture. But I like it's a foundational structural adjustment. Like we're looking at the structure of these things. Like what are the pillars here? What are the things that this business is actually standing upon? This organization, is it going to last? Is it going to sustain? Because if some certain elements are not in place or if they're broken, this thing's not going to last very long.
Yeah, I mean it's the big issue. I mean, if you're an NASA engineer, you're building rockets. You only have a little bit of margin.
Yeah.
Like you rocket scientists, they know the engineers is like your tolerances have to be so exact. If you're not exact, then that thing blows up.
Yeah.
Now, not everybody has that critical a thing, but medical people might, like
Yeah.
rocket engineers. When there's somebody on the rocket, there's a human being on the rocket. Then you got to be real precise. And so it's like you have to kind of understand like what business are you in? How
Mhm.
critical is that thing? You
Mhm.
know, is it super critical or is it like, oh, I let it go?
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt.
But I think it's important the trust level is across the board. It permeates everywhere because
It does. It does. And I think there's a direct correlation between the level of trust and the success and trajectory of of an organization.
definitely. I think what you've got a really cool like vision here for
Thank
for
you.
for actually getting to a root cause. And everybody's always want to do root cause analysis and they go look at this, X, Y, Z. But like this is a core foundational trust. It's like that, like when we everybody's like, oh, I'm looking at the margin. I'm looking at my profitability, looking at my efficiency. It's like, what about the trust? Did you even think to talk about that?
Yeah. No doubt. Yeah. And we do things that help people understand how to build these like, we to bring it back to where we started, these honor driven organizations, because it's really about how you treat people. That's what we've kind of boiled our message down to is how you treat people directly affects the trajectory of the organization. And it
Mm.
can be with employees and it means with customers, but how you treat people directly influences the trajectory of the organization.
I think that's real important. I want to mention that we actually have your QR code up there. So
Okay.
if people are familiar with that, they can take their cell phone, take a snapshot of that, and it'll bring you right to the website that we have down there with elliotsawyer.com and /trust audit. That's the exact URL that QR code is using. So if people hit that, is that how they get to engage with you?
Yeah, that's a great way. They can go to my website, elliotsawyer.com, but that trust audit is a free resource that we do for leaders and organizations to understand their level of trust, if they've got it or not, and where they need to improve.
Okay, that's great. So we encourage people to check that QR code out. The links are actually active on the platforms that we're on. So if you're watching on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Kick, you'll be able to click through the podcast description. Those links are links are active. We will be on major podcast platforms like Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon by the end of the day tomorrow. And I want to thank you for being here on the show today. It's really enlightening your vision here, and I hope everybody engages and checks out like a deeper dive on your website.
Okay.
And we do have your Instagram there too, so people can
Cool.
connect with you there.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here, and I thank you for your platform. Thanks for building this, man.
Thank you. Have a good day. Have a good
You
night.
too. Bye.